Welcome everyone to this episode of the Kirby Comics Store. The store was opened on Mr. Kirby's 100th birthday, and we honor Jack Kirby every day we're in business. I believe that Jack Kirby would not want a store dedicated to just his legacy, but to show everything that he laid the groundwork for, and the positive effects that it's had on modern mythology today. We are very proud to be part of a group of Kirby followers who advocate and educate about Jack Kirby, his characters, his creations, and his legacy. Every year since Mr. Kirby's passing, his legend has grown to epic proportions. This store is in his honor. Jack Kirby always backed creator-owned comics. He was instrumental in influencing so many creators today, and especially Image Comics. While not being the first, Image is definitely the longest running independent company that focuses primarily on creator-owned comics. Let's take a closer look at our Image Comics trade paperback rack. This is our Image trade paperback rack. This is one of my favorite areas of the store, and usually this is where I bring people when they want a reading recommendation. If it's non-superhero and more adult in nature, then I always recommend Image Comics. Formed in 1992 by Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefield, Jim Lee, Erik Larsen. The first book produced in May 1992, Spawn #1, which is still ongoing today and has the longest running history of any independent comic. Spawn really was their version of Superman. That would be their Superman. And honestly, it's amazing that it's still relevant today. Maybe even more so. But now, Image Comics, the modern Image Comics are totally different than the 1992 Image Comics. All the creators left, except for Erik Larsen, who does Savage Dragon, which is also the second longest running independent comic from that era. And I love Erik Larsen's work, especially his more modern work, as he has gotten much more adult with his work. Definitely mature readers only. His early work was not like that. It was PG-13, but this is definitely some R-rated material. So Erik Larsen, I love his Kirby style that he uses, the dynamics of Kirby, the in-your-face dynamics that he was definitely influenced by. Highly recommended Savage Dragon. A lot of people are intimidated when they see the numbering of the current issues, which are in the 250s. And I try to tell people that's not necessary to try to start with issue 1. It's not possible, it's not feasible. And just to jump in with a current trade paperback, and that goes for any title. You don't need to start Spawn, any of these. You don't need to start at the beginning. You simply start with whichever is available to you. If you want to start from the beginning, that's fine. But then you're going to have 20 trade paperbacks to find Spawn at least. And a lot of them are out of print. I always give recommendations to customers based on the characters they like, based on the movies or Netflix that they watch, the genres. If you tell me those things, I can find you an Image book that pretty much guarantees I think you will like the storytelling. The focus is on storytelling. While the art is beautiful, the focus is on storytelling when it comes to Image Comics. And although they make, obviously, the regular comics, the trade paperbacks are collections of the regular monthly comics, which to me are more economical. You have to wait longer for them to come out in collections. You don't get them right away like regular comics. But in the end, I think trade paperbacks are the way to go for reading purposes. We'll start with this one because this one's one of my current favorite reads, the Manhattan Projects. I love this because Jonathan Hickman uses actual scientists and people in history during the atomic age. Einstein, Tesla, von Braun, who ran NASA, and influences them by ancient aliens. And it's very interesting. I'm on the fourth volume, and it has a lot of dark humor, really great storytelling. But when he uses real people in history, it just adds a little bit more humor to it. I really like his work. Godland, if you're talking, Kirby inspired artwork and writing and storytelling, Tom Scioli has to be at the front. Tom Scioli did Jack Kirby, the epic life of the King of Comics biography, which is the first graphic novel about the King. But this was long before. This was at the beginning of Tom Scioli's career, Godland. We have hardcover collections of this, but this is the softcover, Volume 1. Again, Kirby dynamics, Kirby crackle. Tom Scioli, perfectly shows everything about Kirby style that has resonated now with much different generations and down the line, many decades. We're talking the 60s, and now here we go, 60 years later, and people are imitating his art, which I think is a wonderful thing. There's such a variety with Image. They can go from Kirby-inspired ancient aliens, then we can go to something like Die. This is like a Dungeons and Dragons role-playing where the characters, the players become part of a fantasy world that they've created and they can't escape. Again, an adult story, definitely a PG-13 type of book. Moonshine would be R-rated, but I love this. This is Brian Azzarello, and in my opinion, one of the best trade stories, ongoing and unfortunately ending soon. But if you want, I would say Frank Miller-esque Sin City. It's basically gangsters, 1930s gangsters against moonshine bootleggers that are werewolves, with some black magic and witchcraft thrown in. I love this book, but again, R rating. If you're looking for something like Sin City, this is your book. On the more lighter side, Isola. This is just pure art in its most subtle digital art, which is, if you like, more digital art and less old school art, then this would be your cup of tea. Very quick reading, short story, but good sci-fi, very good. Death or Glory, love this book. Rick Remender. This was a chase. This would be R-rated probably. Car chase. The female, the hero is trying to get a heart transplant for her father. They have no insurance, and she has to steal from organ harvesters. It's excellent. It has some very dark humor, but it is a car chase. For you older readers, it would be Steve McQueen's Bullet. But when I tell young kids today, they don't know what that is. So it definitely dates how old I am. Royal City by Jeff Lemire. I love that artwork. He mixes real hometown stories with a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of alternative life. I don't want to say Watchmen, but it's in that frame of mind. Blackbird. This is a great book. A lot of ladies love this book, and I love this book. It's a beautiful looking book. Jen Bartel does the art. You don't see Jen Bartel doing a lot of interiors. Mostly, Jen Bartel does a lot of like covers, variant covers, gorgeous covers like that. But she actually does the interiors on this, and I think that's a lot of the appeal of Blackbird. The Nameless by Grant Morrison. This is kind of like a Scooby-Doo sci-fi, but adult. Definitely anything Grant Morrison does is adult, usually. It's usually out there in a good way. But this is astronauts, a little bit of horror, very good book. Old Guard. This is what the Netflix show is based on. We have a couple volumes of this. I haven't had time to watch the show, but I heard it's very good. Again, based on these. That's a lot of the appeal of Image is that they are being translated directly to Netflix, movies, popular culture. For instance, Mark Millar, his work is owned in full by Netflix. Netflix owns all of his library. Jupiter's Legacy, Netflix owns all of it. They own Kick-Ass, Hit Girl, all of his properties. Magic Order, which is very good. I can't wait to see a Netflix version of that. Very popular seller. Mark Millar, one of the inventors of the Ultimate Universe for Marvel, and a great storyteller. Definitely some dark humor like Hickman, Hickman also worked in the Ultimate Universe. So Netflix recognizes the great storytelling and the transition is seamless. Netflix knows that they can take a graphic novel or trade paperback from Image and immediately turn this into a TV show very quickly. No storyboards, anything needed. So I think it's very easy to do that. Murder Falcon, one of my favorite writer artists today, Daniel Warren Johnson. I love his artwork, his writing. His Beta Ray Bill right now for Marvel is, in my opinion, the best thing going right now at Marvel. I can't wait to see more of his work. I think he's really going to be much bigger than anybody anticipated. I hope that Marvel gives him something really big to work on next. Not that Beta Ray Bill isn't, but he definitely deserves an A-list title. He is A-list caliber in my opinion, and this is one of his great Image titles from a couple years ago. Basically, heavy metal fighting Godzilla, heavy metal being used as a weapon against a Godzilla invading type of thing. I like this Shanghai Red. This is dark, definitely R-rated. It is being Shanghaied was an actual term, 1800s, where people would be kidnapped, possibly coming out of a tavern. They would be drugged, they would be clubbed, and then they would be forced for a year or longer to be ship hands, to work on a ship as basically as a slave, or be killed. So this woman is posing as a man to get work back then, and no one knows that she's a woman, so she has to hide that fact as she is shanghaied and is a slave, a slave in the ship. Very dark. It's definitely a tale of revenge. As the woman, the main character, she hunts down everyone responsible for taking away those years out of her life. Very good. If you like revenge stories, this is a book for you. Nomen Omen, another favorite among ladies, and myself as well, not just ladies, but it definitely resonates with women. Magic, empowerment, other worlds, but much more adult, than say Blackbird, but in that same realm. But definitely a great trade paperback to start with if you've never read trade paperback before. That's a great start. My opinion, greatest ongoing series today, Monstrous, by Marjorie Liu and Santa Takeda. In my opinion, the best storytellers, the best art that we have today. This is my #1 selling trade paperback in the store's history. I've sold at least 65 to 70 copies of just this volume, which outsells everything else. And I'm so proud of that because almost everyone that I recommend this to has never heard of it, which is Usually how it is with comics. Comics don't gain a lot of ground until sometimes they're coming towards the end, which is just the way it is. Sometimes comics are more popular a decade after they've ended. But in this case, this is still ongoing, so you can catch up by starting at volume 1 through 5, and then you can get all the newest issues on the rack every month. But this is definitely R-rated, dystopian, witchcraft, fantasy, talking cats, very dark but uplifting, which is what I like. I can have some dark stories, but I want a moment of hope at the end, or somewhere in between. And this definitely will give you some hope, I believe. I love the artwork. Anytime anyone comes in asking for manga, I always point them towards this. I mean, this is the real deal. This is a Japanese native as the artist, and to me, this is some of the, if not the best artwork that you will find, in my opinion. This is beautiful artwork. They won. This is the first female duo to win an Eisner Award together, which is the equivalent of the Academy Award. So these two were finally recognized for their quality. Marjorie Liu even teaches, I believe at Harvard or Cambridge, a class on comic book writing. So she's the top of her game. We have Ice Cream Man. A lot of people, and I was mistaken as well, thought this was some kind of horror slasher. It is not. This is a beautiful book that you can start anytime. It's an anthology horror, basically kind of Twilight Zone, more Twilight Zone than horror. It's the narrator is the Ice Cream Man, and yes, it is dark. More modern stories with a twist, with a subtle little life lessons, but definitely adult. But you can start anywhere. There's 4 or 5 volumes of this. You could start at any volume because they're anthology, which means there's no issues 1 through present that you have to read. They're all individual, done-in-one stories, which I love because so many people come in and will not start a great series if they can't get number 1 first, which it's not possible. In my day, it was definitely not possible, so we didn't have a choice. We had to start with 2 or whatever we could find. Today, with everything being more accessible, people, for the most part, want to have number 1 and work their way up. This book, you don't need that. We Stand on Guard, excellent book, excellent work, artwork. Brian Vaughan, I think his best work is Saga. We're still waiting for Saga to come back. It's been on hiatus for over 2 years now, which is a real shame because this was the number 1 Image book in my opinion. It was ongoing. It made it to 55, and then it stopped. And everybody is still waiting for this to come back, and it's going to be very hard to get back that fan base, in my opinion. Comic fans are just not very patient, and I don't. Unfortunately, no matter how good issue 56 or the next issue is, we're going to lose a lot of readers that we had built with this. Great epic storytelling, basically an R-rated Star Wars soap opera. It's explicit and it's definitely for adults, but just like Monstrous, I show this to people that are just off the street, have never read a comic before, and they come back for all the other volumes, which we always keep in stock. Highly recommended. If this was still ongoing, it would be neck and neck with Monstrous as far as storytelling quality. But because it's been on hiatus for so long, I have to say it's my second favorite right now. But still excellent and a great book to jump onto. If I may note, another thing that I love about Image, a lot of their titles, not all their titles, but a lot of their volume 1s, they like to do a $9.99 introductory price, which is great for people jumping on. That's very important to make things economical as far as a first issue, a first volume. And then the next one would be 15, 16. That's a great way to get people started. Deadly Class had a great premise. This was basically an adult Harry Potter type school, but for assassins, for the children of all the world's top assassins. Great concept. Another Rick Remender book. a great writer. He's written for everyone. I love that he does creator owned, which is what Image is known for, and what they have perfected, as Todd McFarlane has transformed a company from 1992 that was basically heavily on, they focused on artwork, detailed artwork. Their storytelling was lacking, to be honest, which is why Spawn and Savage Dragon are the only ones left from that era. But now I believe they have the market cornered on great storytelling, creator-owned rights, and the most variety out of any other company. Since 2003, the early 2000s, with Robert Kirkman starting Walking Dead and then Invincible, he definitely started a new era of creator-owned comics that we're presently in today. I believe we're in what I call the creator's age. We have the Bronze Age, the Copper Age, the Modern Age, and I believe we are in the creator's age right now, which is a good thing, because so many times in history, and Mr. Kirby especially, comic creators had to fight for their rights, not only to be paid, but to get their artwork back, to get credit for creating these characters, and it's still ongoing today. But you don't hear much, if any, about that ever happening at Image Comics, because most, if not all, are creator-owned, which I can get behind. Paper Girls, another great series, another Brian Vaughan series, excellent, just ended about a year ago, but we have many volumes of this. It's an excellent series to start. Time travel, 1980s, Paper Girls. Again, I date myself when I tell younger kids about paper girls, paper boys being in every neighborhood. That isn't the case anymore, but that was a big thing in the 80s. So I can definitely relate to a lot of what's going on in here. This is more adult, even though it has a teens as the main protagonist. It is a little adult, a little mature, but a lot of images like that. Most of their books are PG-13, if I was to give the rating. The Discipline, Peter Milligan, dark, very dark, R-rated, kind of a vampire, werewolf, R-rated type of thing. Really good read. Really good adult read. If you like vampires. Then we have Redlands. We have 2 volumes of that. These always sell out. This is one of our top sellers. Horror. It's always popular. There you have it. Our Image. We carry, I want to say, about 60%. I want to say of Image's total catalog, if I had to guess. Sometimes we run out of certain volumes, but we try to keep all the volume ones in stock for people to start. But this is definitely where I would show someone a recommendation if they've never read a trade paperback before. So it was a pleasure showing everyone my personal favorite trade paperbacks and some of the best storytelling that the modern age has.